Well, hello and welcome to the Waking Up Spiritually podcast. We're so thrilled to have you join us. I'm Wendy Rose Williams, and I am a past life energy healer, and I help people release the pain, anxiety, depression, the stuck energy that is not serving you. And oh my goodness, what a difference. We can just feel so much happier and healthier and enjoy living our purpose when we release that energy that doesn't serve us. My website is wendyrosewilliams.com. So you're so welcome to take a look at that and see if you'd like to work together privately or join me for a fun group event. And I'd like to turn the microphone over to my wonderful co-host, Gregg Kirk, who's going to introduce himself as well as today's topic. So again, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gregg Kirk. I'm an energy healer who works both remotely and in person. I'm also a disease advocate. I've written a book called The Gratitude Curve about my journey through Lyme disease and spiritual awakening. And I run weekly online group healing circles via Zoom, as well as we're doing a fire circle in Connecticut this Saturday, October 19th. So we do these group healing sessions as well as one-on-one sessions. I've got a clinic in Connecticut called Lyme Recovery Clinic where I do in-person health counseling as well as energy healing. So you can check all that out at greggkirk.com. That's GREGGKIRK.com. And love to hear from you. You can click the contact link or the events link if you're interested in the events. So today, Wendy and I we're the subject is releasing past life energy. So as you know, Wendy is a past life regressionist, and I'm an energy healer who has not been trained in past life regression, but past lives come up during the sessions frequently. So it's an interesting. You'll get two flavors of releasing past life energy through Wendy's hypnosis technique and through what I do. So hopefully it'll give a broad spectrum of how these energies can be released and why we want to release them, as well as the positive benefits for them. So while I'm going to pull up the
So while Greg does that, let me share our website with you. If you go to wakingupspiritually.com, you'll find that the podcast is archived there. We also go live on YouTube and we're on the podcast apps. But if you go to the website, there you'll be able to search and you can put in whatever topic in the spirituality arena, energy healing, things about guides, past lives, put it in the search bar, and you're very likely to find a topic or a podcast on that topic. And if you don't find what you need, let us know because we might be able to have that discussion for you and create a podcast.
great. So here's our episode today: releasing past life energy.
Yay, one of my favorite topics. So, how does past life regression therapy actually work? So, our higher self, also known as our soul, and our guides, our spirit guides, architect the experience because they are privy via our book of life, also called the book of love. They are privy to all our experiences, our present day, our past lives, our parallel, our future. And I just think that's such an incredible concept. So they are able to help us release that energy that is not serving us. Typically, it shows up as pain, both physical and emotional pain, anxiety, depression, or just feeling stuck, that feeling like you cannot get out of second gear. Like the theme song to Friends. Life is stuck and you cannot get out of second gear. And you may have tried to shift that energy for a long time on your own. And it just can so benefit from having someone help with that to be able to release that. So, we are able to access the memories from our subconscious, and we're able to do that because our soul is eternal and emotions are timeless. So that's why this energy can just bubble up. And past lives, they're not the doom and gloom report. There's also wonderful information that can come forward. So there's both sides of the coin with this, and they can help us feel more confident. They can help us bring up skills and past life abilities that we're still working on and perfecting today. We're able to feel happier and healthier and enjoy more harmonious relationships now when we do release that energy that doesn't serve us. Anything to add to that, Gregg?
No, just underlining what you said. So I first heard about the idea of past life regression therapy through I read Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many Masters book a long time ago. My wife has actually introduced me to it. It was the first spiritual book I ever read, and I thought it was fascinating that people who were not spiritual or they would come in for a hypnosis session to try to, you know, get to the bottom of why they had asthma or some sort of unexplainable fear of certain things. And in that book, it's mostly about okay, there's a root for why a root problem that's from another, from a previous life.
Mhm.
And once that's
Lifetime of origin. Yes.
right, and once that's resolved, it's like magic. The person, the affliction goes away. I thought that was fascinating. So that's for a decade or more, I thought that's what past life regression therapy and other, identifying past lives. You got to identify that trauma and to release the energy, and that's all you do until I had it shown to me through guides as I was doing sessions. I would start to see past lives for people, and because I didn't know, I would see these great lives, these lives where the person was having a good time and doing amazing things. So, I don't hear voices and I don't speak out loud to the guides, at least very often. So in my mind, I was asking the guides, why am I seeing this amazing life for this person? And then they said mastery, for mastery reason. In other words, they were really good at something in another lifetime. And that this needs, if we identify it out loud to the person, they can start investigating and notice that they'll have innate abilities, that they didn't know, or maybe they kind of had an inkling, why do I like painting so much? Well, maybe you were an artist, in the 1800s and you were actually really good, that kind of thing. Or maybe it's not manifesting as painting in this lifetime. Maybe it's drawing something or computer art or graphics or
Either
something.
creative art.
Yeah, it's something like that. So that's I got to learn that, firsthand without reading about it. So that was really cool. But I just want to underline, like you said, it's not always a doom and gloom report when you start to see someone's past lives. Sometimes it's about that. It's about you led a beautiful life. You had a life of some level of expertise that you can bring forward now.
Yes. So let me share some past life energy releases with you because I think these stories, these direct client experiences, just explain better than any theory. So here's the real world. I had a lovely older gal come to me, and she was really struggling with the fear of heights, and she just could not figure out why. And so when we have these fears, these phobias, and it just doesn't seem to make sense with anything that happened in this lifetime, that is typically past life energy. So it was such a big deal for her. She could not take an escalator anywhere. So if she was at the airport, she'd have to just build an extra time and go find where the elevator was. If there was an escalator in a shopping mall, she couldn't, go up to the other level without finding stairs, an elevator. She just couldn't. She couldn't do it. And she was newly engaged. And she and her fiance really wanted to go on hikes. They wanted to just be able to travel and, enjoy walking and exploring. And she had such a fear of heights that she couldn't either walk or drive up or down any hills without it just crippling her with anxiety. So at the time when we did this session, she actually came to my home. It was back in the day when I was doing some group sessions, and she was also the only person that signed up for that day. So I had a feeling there was something pretty big was going to go on because only one person had signed up instead of the usual six. And she came in looking a little pale and she said, "Oh my goodness, that was quite the hill to come down to get to your house." And I thought, "Oh my goodness, I don't think that's more than a 10 or 15% incline." So I knew right from the moment what was going on. So we did the session and we found the lifetime of origin pretty quickly. She relaxed easily once she was in my level living room and just was able to meditate with me and just follow along. She connected with her guide easily, and we went to what looked like a pretty idyllic past life. And she was in that life as a young man, and she'd been out walking in the forest and just enjoying herself, enjoying her day. She'd been gathering some different things with her that day, and then she had laid down by the side of a river to just kind of relax in the sun and just take a nap. She'd had her little picnic meal that she took with her, and a band of thieves came upon her while she was asleep, and she had that whatever container. It was like a pouch bag, like a saddlebag type thing made from leather, and they thought that there was likely something very valuable in it, and they overpowered her, and they just mercilessly shoved her as a group. There were three or four of them. They shoved her off this tall riverbank. She fell to her death. And so that fear of heights came from that past life. So the minute we found it and we released that death scene and we just went through that, we got her just feeling comfortable, and she rose up to the light easily, and then she kind of shook it off, and she before I could even say to her, that was then and this is now, because that is a key phrase. And before I could even say it to her, she's like, "Oh, that was such a long time ago." And then we went through the exercise if she needed to say anything to those men who had done that to her. Was she able to forgive them? Was there any self-forgiveness? And she just powered through all that beautifully. And she just looked at me with the biggest smile and she said, "I'm free," as she was leaving. And her fiance had been waiting. He had been waiting outside for her. They'd been traveling from out of the area, so he was just outside on my porch swing. And she just went outside with this, huge smile and said to him, "Honey, let's book some hikes."
Nice.
So it just was wonderful to be able to see that. And we did also look at, was there any fear of water? Because she hadn't mentioned that. And interestingly, she didn't have one because I thought there could be both from, having had that fall into the river that led to her death. But there wasn't one. So that was just really, really an amazing experience to see her release that and how it freed up her life. Because I just hadn't thought of all the impacts that that fear of heights could have. Initially when I thought about it, it's like, okay, so it's someone that doesn't want to go over bridges or doesn't want to go up, live on the 44th floor or work up on the 44th floor. But it was impacting her much more in daily life, as I mentioned.
Hmm.
So, any questions about that one, Gregg?
No, it makes sense. All of it makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay, perfect. I have had so many people with driving phobia, fear of driving a car themselves, fear of being a passenger in the car. I have had literally dozens of people with this. I think because I had fears to release in that area. So I think that's why I kind of attracted people with it, because I could relate to it firsthand. And what I have found with multiple of the people is they have been train engineers. They have been locomotive engineers. And think about the history of trains, whether it's in the United States, whether it's in Europe. They were not always the most safe mode of transportation. I mean, we still have train incidents nowadays. It's all the safety boards and everything's in place to make it as safe as possible, but there still are train derailments even nowadays. So I've met at least a half a dozen people who were train engineers, and the engineer is the person who is responsible for operating and moving the train. And they're often, especially back in the day, they were traveling with their body, with their head like half out of the train to be looking down the tracks to make sure there was nothing on it. A tree limb hadn't fallen, there wasn't some sort of obstruction, etc. And all the people that have had a driving phobia or anxiety, there was something very, very challenging that had happened in that lifetime. There had been some sort of accident, some sort of incident, some sort of catastrophe that had led to serious injuries and or deaths of people that were on the train that they were moving. And the guilt, the shame, the heartbreak, because this was a career that was, you didn't choose, Joe Blow off the street. This was something that you chose someone that was very responsible, mechanically minded, someone with great eyesight and very focused. I mean, in some ways, it's like an airline pilot in some ways. And so these were people that really were cream of the crop and just appreciated. No one that I've worked with there was nothing that was ever at fault. It wasn't like there'd been a terrible incident where someone was derelict and was not paying attention or had showed up to work impaired. There was nothing like that. But there just had been these different challenging outcomes. And some of the people that I worked with as we went through and released these past lives, and I did also find some horse carriage drivers. So, again, back in the day, and doing that for hire, and some incidences with sad tragic outcomes there. I was one of those who I found had two very challenging outcomes when I was a train engineer, and there had been loss of life as well as injuries. So two lives like that, and also one where I'd been a horse carriage driver. The horse carriage driver one was particularly interesting for me because the people that I was carrying on that day, and there was arguably and at fault a decision that I made because it was getting dark and the people had been delayed and had been hired to drive them from the train to where they were staying, and it just visibility was really getting poor. But I just felt the need, to get them to where they were going to be able to stay and to sleep comfortably. We could have made a different decision. We could have chosen to, stay overnight in the train station and just, sat up for the night on the bench or, tried to sleep on the benches, but made the decision, okay, we can do this. And I just simply could not see well enough. Just dark of night had fallen. Horse carriage. It's not like you got great headlights on these. This was hundreds of years ago. And what happened was I missed a turn. I didn't see a sharp turn, and unfortunately, we went over. We went over the edge. Again, there were not guardrails, back in that day, and we went over the edge. And I felt such heartbreak and guilt and shame from that how it came forward in this lifetime. I did not have trouble driving when I was alone. I was perfectly happy, fine, good driver, comfortable when alone. But if I had to drive anyone else, particularly children, it really, really bothered me. And that's because my passengers were a young couple that was married. She was pregnant, and they had their young child with them. So I just felt such guilt and shame from that lifetime. The way it ended up being released, I am so grateful. I met the woman again in this lifetime. We became friends. She knew nothing about this past life. It wouldn't fit her belief system, so I never shared it with her. But when her young son, she was very busy with work and lots of things going on, and I had some spare time. I had a flexible schedule being self-employed, and I offered to take her son to the little gym and to go do gymnastics classes. I cannot tell you what a big deal it was for me. So, we carefully, got the car seat in my car. I actually got a second car seat so we wouldn't have to switch it back and forth all the time. Made sure, had her check it, made sure everything was great. And I drove so carefully, and it just was a big deal, to be trusted and to get to make that up in the best way that I could. And so her son and I had just a marvelous, 10 weeks or whatever the weekly session was at the little gym, and he got to take gymnastics.
Hmm.
So that's how that one played out. But driving is a fact of life for many, many people. And not being able to drive, or being just so white knuckled with it, or being so terribly anxious as a passenger, because it can get, very specific what the scenario is. But being able to find the lifetime or lifetimes, because there can be more than one. For instance, as I said, I myself had three. So it's just a big deal to get that resolved. One of the techniques that my guide showed me was, if it's someone who has driving anxiety and is just worried about it, but they need to drive somewhere, is just really ground and clear your energy before you get in the car. You also can put some wonderful dark protective grounding crystals, just throw them in your glove box or whatever crystal feels right to you, to just help you really feel, safe and great in your car. And then before you leave, picture yourself arriving back home with a big smile on your face. So it's just a way of like pre-paving your way. So yeah, that's been a really interesting one. But like I said, I've attracted such a number of people with that. I think because I had overcome this myself. So, any comments or questions on that one, Greg? Have you had that come up with any of your clients?
None. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, yes. And like I said, I think, like kind of attracts like
Right, exactly. Yeah.
things like that. Romantic rivals. Oh my goodness. I have had a multitude. It's been all women. I don't think I've had any men with a romantic rival. And the way this shows up from a past life, it's another person that you just cannot get along with, and that person seems to have this extreme, intense dislike or distrust of you.
Mm,
So I can think of three off the top of my head where what we found was they had been romantic rivals.
mm,
So one was my client was this lovely gal who was a massage therapist, and she was divorced, and her former husband had remarried, and his new wife just thought she was Satan. I mean, it was just really an issue. So they were not able to have the children go back and forth peacefully
mm,
in a shared residential schedule. And what we found was they had been romantic rivals in another lifetime for the same man who is now had been the first husband and now the second husband. And in the past life, the second wife had lost out on the man that she felt was the be all and end all, and him or no one kind of thing. And she had lost out on him to the first wife. So sadly, in this lifetime, they took it so far as to apply for full custody, and they were able to get full custody as a married couple and with a larger income and a more stable income versus my client who was self-employed, but still doing very well. She'd been a massage therapist for 15, 20 years, had a very established clientele. But that was just, it was really sad and how that had played out to such a degree. So we needed to do some forgiveness work. We needed to just release. Archangel Michael actually came in and cut some of the cords of attachment of just anger and just tit for tat that had been going on between the two of them. So that was a big case of romantic rivals. My most recent case of it was a client just a few weeks ago, and her husband passed on, and they have not been able to settle the estate because her stepdaughter just will not agree, and there's a dispute over the will. So here we have the second wife, and we have the stepdaughter, and guess what? Turns out they were romantic rivals in a past life. And the man in question in that lifetime was the younger woman's father, who she now was expecting to essentially leave her everything in the will as the only child, even though she's, an adult functional woman, in her 50s or whatever, and she's expecting that her stepmother, his wife of 20, 25 years, should inherit nothing. That's her expectation. So it's just it's been locked for like 2 or 3 years with this dispute over the will. And the minute I said to the client, "Oh my goodness, I can see what's happening," and I was describing the life to her, and she said, "You have no idea how much sense that makes to me, because that's exactly how my stepdaughter acts. Is she was kind of flirty with her father, and just always trying to cajole him, do this for me, do that for me, I need this, I need that." And she said it was just really, really difficult for her as the second wife to just have a happy marriage with them, which she did have. But she said this was always a big odd impact. And she's like, just knowing this gives me so much relief. So we invited in her stepdaughter's higher self and guides, because I had kind of wondered if the higher self would be even, willing to have the conversation. And I was right. It took the guides to, just look at this and go, there's a peaceful settlement to this. And we're not free while we're having this, long drawn out argument, dispute over the will. So we just need to find some ways to, make peace with this. So I'll be very, interested in hearing from that client now that, again, Archangel Michael came in and cut some cords on this, because just we can just get stuck. We can just get stuck in this old energy that's not serving us. So those were two major cases of that. But as I said, I've seen that many times. There can be curses that are going on, and please do not be a victim and think, oh my goodness, that's terrible, that someone else could curse me and cause all these problems in my life. What I typically find, yes, there can be someone else who just really had an issue with us and had actually actively cursed us. But let's not be victims. Let's realize that most of these curses, more often it is us, and we don't realize that we are cursing ourselves. I'll give you an example of that. If you were a parent many years ago, back in the day when it was not uncommon to have 6, 8, 10, 12 children. And what if you're in the situation where you cannot feed them all well, and you just say, oh, I never want to have children again? Guess what? That often leads to infertility, miscarriages, because, or if you've ever lost a child and gone through that extreme heartbreak, there can be this sort of a curse that we, place upon ourselves. Also, soul contracts and agreements can come in here too. And there's definitely ancestral blocks and behaviors that can come up, and just cycles of abuse and trauma from the entire family line. So, Greg, did you actually add those? Did you have comments in that area? Because I relate to all of those, and I don't
Yes.
even remember if I
Yeah,
put.
yeah. I wasn't sure how we were going to use this slide, so I added all those, and
Okay,
you
perfect. Because I'm like, yep, check. And I'm like,
right, right.
why am I putting
The,
that there?
these are all kind of teeing up some things that I'll talk about later. So,
Please, yes, please. Anything you want to add to that?
I'll add plenty
Okay,
in the
okay,
upcoming slides.
okay, perfect,
So let's move on to
perfect.
this, yeah, to this
Yes.
one here.
Oh, this one, this client, she's just a gifted writer and storyteller, just delightful gal. And she was struggling. She's successfully written plays, had this beautiful website with all kinds of blogs on it that were very specifically stories of having helped people specifically to cross over to the light. But she wanted to write her first book. And that was just bringing up this immense struggle. So Donna was overwhelmed and anxious what to include in the first book, because she just had too much great info to share, and she couldn't see how to structure it and how to make it be bite sized, so that it would be an appropriate book, or the beginning of a book series. So, what did we do? What was the process? We aligned with her higher self, and we specifically called in a writing guide. And she wasn't familiar with that concept. She didn't know that we can have specialty guides to help us with a beautiful life purpose, like being an author and sharing books to help others. So we were able to heal the lifetimes of origin that were related to the challenges. For instance, if you've ever been a writer before and had a challenging outcome, a poor outcome, because there's not always been freedom of speech. I mean, you can have literally written something, published something that led to being imprisoned or tortured, or having your family be harmed, having your property, your home taken away from you. So she had some of those very challenging lifetimes that we released. Well, goodness, wouldn't that cause writer's block? now that she was sitting down to actually publish her first book. So we did a lot of grounding and clearing with her energy. She needed balancing and strengthening of her lower chakras in particular, just to improve her health, her wealth, that root chakra, harmonious relationships, and purpose, because it definitely was part of her purpose, to be a wonderful writer. And also the sacral chakra had gotten um, just impinged and just really pinched, and she wasn't feeling the joy and creativity that she had felt, and just the excitement that she'd felt initially, because with that sacral chakra really firing up and helping, right from that energy, because these just really challenging, right to the point of death lifetimes had come up. So we needed to release those, and then she really needed her solar plexus strengthened, so that she just could feel confident, just that self-love, self-compassion. Um, you're not going to die if you leave a dangling participle or have a split infinitive. My mother edited my first book, and she kind of jokingly named me the queen of split infinitives. Look, okay, good point. I will thank you for pointing that out, Mom. And so, then I made sure to correct that for the future. I think she said she literally corrected 40 in the first book. So, no one's going to kill you for it. It's going to be okay. So, that's what happened. And during the session, we were able to outline the entire book. And when you've got your title, when you have an idea of what the cover's going to look like, when you know what your chapters are and how many chapters you're going to have, and when you get that, and we even chose the chapter headings. So, because as I said, she'd just been overwhelmed by too many good ideas. So with the writing guide, we just were able to get that figured out, and also came up with the title. So she said she just felt so much relief at the end of that process, and I'm so looking forward to purchasing her book.
Really cool. Wow. Okay. Here's a tale I would like to share with you. Actually, I've shared it before in some of our past podcasts, but this is kind of the big one that I was, lucky enough to be a part of and participate in. It's about a patient, a Lyme patient, obviously. So, that who came into, I was doing a residency, energy healing residency at a wellness center, and she was one of the people who came in. I met her during I was giving a presentation about Lyme disease, and she came in. She had done about at least 5 years, I think, of treatment, and was depressed, and she felt like she had lost her identity in her life, and she was kind of going over with me what a wonderful life she had had prior, and really grieving for the life she couldn't lead now because of the disease. So we didn't have any expectations. I just said, you know what, let's try to release some of this energy with an in-person session. So more or less Reiki, using tuning forks and other modalities in person. So we did 2 sessions in person, and I was doing this every 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks went by, and during it, I was moving her arm around, and she, said, I don't have full range of motion because I've got a rotator cuff tear. So we were using the tuning forks, and I think after the first session or second session, I don't remember. She said, actually, it had to have been the first session. She said that she was also doing physical therapy. So her physical therapist said, hey, you've got better range of motion. I thought, oh, well, that's always good to hear some positive feedback about that. So we did the second session. And then for the third session, this was now after about 6 weeks of doing it, the third session, she said she couldn't meet me in person. So I said, well, we can do it remotely. And this was during the period of time where I thought, well, it's not, I didn't say this to her. I thought, well, it's probably not going to be as effective, because what could be better than to be there in person, being very direct. I had to be schooled on this idea that sometimes the body's distracting, and sometimes the best session you can have is a remote session. where you get right down to the nitty gritty of what's going on, what's really bothering you. And here's what happened. So we're on the phone. The woman is um, is a Catholic woman who I I didn't know what her belief system was, but I didn't think she believed in past lives for one thing. So when the first scene that I saw was her wearing a large powdered wig, obviously about 400 years before, it looked like France, you know? So I said, all right, I'm seeing you and you're wearing this long, this tall powdered wig. I think I'm seeing you in France. She said, okay. So, all right. When I hear okay, then I think, all right, I'll tell you more. But unfortunately, what I got more of was that she was some kind of prostitute. So, like, we've gotten through the first gate. How are we going to get through this next one? Where not only am I telling her she has had a past life, it's like a some
How does
prostitute.
one appropriately word this information?
Right, right. But also not just appropriately word it, but how is she's going to hang up on me? Um, she's going to stop the session because this. But no, she did not do that. She said okay. And then as we were talking, I got the full download. Like this is kind of how it works in our sessions, where I start to dimly see. It's like dreamlike. I see these things, and as we just begin to speak about it, like the full thing comes in all at once. So what I saw was that she was a part of the French aristocracy. So she had a lot of money. She and her husband. Okay. Now her husband passed away, and for some reason, she did not receive the inheritance. So this left her and her children destitute. So she didn't know what to do. So she's in the aristocracy. She never got trained to do any work. You know, the only thing she knew how to do was this. To basically sleep with some of the men who were friends with her husband, her now deceased husband. And so I told her this, and I said, really, you weren't a streetwalker. You were, you
She
know,
knew how to entertain, how to charm, how
you
to
were
have
consort. You were consort.
conversation, be a consort.
Yes, exactly. But the problem was then I saw one day this elderly man that had slept with pushed her down a flight of stairs, and I saw her shoulder getting severely damaged. I felt like this led to her death. Now, whether she didn't die from it, but now she was injured, and then she couldn't take care of herself. Her health declined, and then she passed. So, as I mentioned the shoulder thing, she said, Gregg, my shoulder is heating up. And I said, all right, well, this is probably a good thing. She wasn't worried. I said, it's nothing to worry about. And honestly, I'd forgotten about the rotator cuff tear. So I said, all right, your shoulder's probably, you're getting some attention, some healing attention. And then, we finished the session. I ended up doing a full body clearing as I normally do. And I didn't think much of it after that. We hung up. Seemed happy with the session. Anyway, 2 weeks later, I'm in the wellness center. She comes in and I'm sitting there with the owner, and she comes in. She looks so different. She's glowing. She's radiant. She's got a spring in her step, so we're sitting there drinking tea, you know, and even the owner says, well, "Wow, you look great. How are you doing? What's going on?" And she explained. She said, "I got the funniest story to tell you. I went in, to." She had rotator cuff surgery scheduled, so she had to go to her doctor to get a CAT scan done to, measure the size of the tear and so they could better do surgery. And
Pre-surgical planning.
exactly. And the doctor came back after the test and said, what did you do? Because there's nothing there anymore. There's nothing to operate on. So that, and she laughed and said, well, I had energy healing done. And he was like, what?
The body is a miracle.
Yes. So that was very miraculous. And, it's fantastic to hear this. Now, so the owner of the wellness center gets up. She says, we need to have I want to film a testimony of you saying this, so we can get this up on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So she goes away to get her camera, and then she leans into me and says, "By the way, Gregg, I don't have Lyme disease anymore," which that was a much bigger impact on me than
Wow.
anything else, because that's very miraculous. You know, Lyme disease is a very persistent set of infections, and it just doesn't go away, you know, that often over, you know, one energy session, you know. So anyway, that's amazing. I'm writing a second book, and that's one of the things that's going to be mentioned in it. I've also done a set of case studies. So I presented last year at a Lyme disease conference that was mainly a number of all kinds of various doctors. So it's basically a practitioner
Mhm.
conference symposium, and I was honored to speak about using Reiki and energy healing as an adjunct therapy for Lyme disease. Now, obviously, not all the sessions are like this; they're not all miraculous. But I gave 5 case studies. This was one of them, and then I gave other ones where we talk about how energy healing can help all manner of different types of illnesses, including Lyme disease. So, yeah,
Oh, what an incredible, oh, that's just marvelous to hear.
yes,
Okay, well, on the topic of rotator cuff and chronic pain, I worked with a client. This was one of my early clients, Simon, and he had been a lifetime athlete in 2 high impact sports, and he was experiencing significant daily back, neck, and shoulder pain, and he'd actually broken his neck and he'd had that surgically repaired, but he still was, even though it was a wonderful surgery, and they'd done everything they could for him, he still was really struggling with tight neck, sore neck, neck pain that then would rotate or radiate down into the shoulders and down into the back. So we did a past life regression and we connected him. He'd never been able to connect with this higher self or with his guide. So that was just a really big deal to get to make those connections, for him and for him to be able to experience this because he'd so wanted to do it, but he just hadn't been able to accomplish it. I had the benefit, Greg, that I did know his belief system, absolutely included that. I didn't have to play it through so carefully in my head of how do I explain to someone that she was a consort or
right, yeah,
geisha or depending on the
right,
culture.
right.
So we found 2 really gnarly lifetimes of origin for this extreme pain that he was feeling. And he was doing everything right. I mean, he was daily exercise, he was going for acupuncture, massage therapy, he was doing, just everything he could, but he did not want to take painkillers. He said, I'm not going to, live my life that way. I know that's just masking it. I want to get to what the real issue is. So knowing that, that was just so helpful to me. So we got to 2 very challenging, very unpleasant scenes. And again, let's not be victims because we've gone through them. We've been perpetrators. We've been observers. So let's just realize that there's been some very interesting things in the history of mankind. We've not always been humankind. So in one of them, he was uh, racked and quartered. So which is just a medieval torture and just designed to very slowly tear the person apart and destroy their joints. So very, very gnarly. So we went through that, and again, do not feel that you're going to be re-traumatized. It's actually the opposite. We're able to pull up and view this from the soul's level, and the soul, the higher self, it knows it's eternal, and it's like, it can just kind of narrate, oh, this is happening. And if the person is showing, signs of distress, crying, being upset, just getting those emotions out, that's what's meant to happen, however the person expresses that, but we make sure that it's comfortable from them. And if someone's seeing something and they're like, oh, it's too big, it's too intense, I'm like, that's okay. We can make that TV, if you're seeing it, we can make that TV be the size of a stamp, just so you get the information, and we can, or I can take over and simply narrate it for them so that they're not feeling it if it's too much. We also found a lifetime where he had um, mental acuity issues, and he was very, very low IQ, and he had been egregiously harmed in that lifetime, and had been pushed and shoved by some bullies, and had just ended up in this extreme pain on these very, very sharp rocks. So it was horrible. So we went through this, and I asked him if he was able to forgive the perpetrators, and he did so really, really easily. And I was impressed. I was just really, really impressed, because he already knew and said, hey, we're not victims. The reason I'm feeling this pain is because I haven't let go of it. I haven't forgiven, and I want to forgive. I want to move on. And I know, I've done the same to, other people, or worse, or let it happen, or was the observer, or whatever. One of the two people that he needed to forgive, that was involved with him having been tortured, was his mother in this lifetime. And he had a really close, really wonderful relationship with his mother, but it was very complex. And he's like, well, this gave me another chapter, why it's so complex. But he easily forgave her, and he also forgave the inquisitor, the person who was asking the questions, that then was part of the torture. And that person, to my deep chagrin, was me. So there's how the wheel turned again, because now I'm the past life regressionist helping him heal it all. And before, I had been on the other side of the coin. So that was really, really, hard for me to hear. It was an opportunity for me to forgive myself.
Wow.
So his neck pain, I had asked him at the beginning of it, what was his neck pain typically like on a scale of 1 to 10 on a daily basis. And he said it was as much as an 8. That's a lot. That is really, really prohibiting you from living a normal life if you've got that much pain. So that's why he'd been seeking, so many different alternative therapies. And his pain, I couldn't believe it. By the end of that, it was back in the day when I was doing a long single sessions. I've restructured it since then, but that session was 4.5 hours. And at the end of that session, he said to me, I can't believe the difference. And also, it was an in-person session. It was actually the last session I did in person. So it would have been back in 2016. And I could just see him. He's like, oh my gosh, I can turn my neck. This doesn't hurt. This feels so much better. And he's like, I can, move my shoulders, my back, my neck, everything. And he was able to play soccer again. He was a recreational soccer player, loved to play soccer. He was actually the goalie, and he's like, I've got to be able to see. I got to be able to turn my neck. And he also was driving for a living at that time. So to be able to drive more easily, more often, without having all that neck pain, because again, that was, it was really limiting how much driving he could do. So it increased his income too, because he could drive. And I wrote my first book about it, Regression Healing One, The Huntsman, the Lord High Mayor, and the World War II Soldier, is about this remarkable client and this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful healing.
Fascinating. And amazing that, you were a participant in, one of the past lives, and you were able to heal all this, in yourself and with him. I mean, that sometimes it comes full circle like that, like you said. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Because someone else that had helped him with it, but then I wouldn't have received
Right.
the healing the same way. So yeah, it was a pretty remarkable session. Thankfully, my guides told me before I went into it very specifically. They said this is going to be the most difficult past life regression healing session of your career. So
Yeah.
be
Wow.
ready.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I made sure I went in, really well rested and just there to serve.
Very, very cool. So, here's, yeah. So sometimes when patients contact me, they do a little self-diagnosis. I don't know if you've had this happen, Wendy, where, I've had, so I
They
had,
have an instinct of what's going on.
well, more than that, and a lot of it's sometimes, patients nowadays, they do the research. So, this patient had done a lot of research on various things and had kind of diagnosed herself that her inner child needed to be healed.
Mhm.
So, okay. And the problem was, as the session began, I asked her guides, I asked my guides, can we help heal her inner child? And just nothing came up. um, so, and it was frustrating for me because I wasn't getting anything. It was hard for me to speak to her actually. It was hard to verbalize until I just find, basically the guide said, ask her why she feels like she needs her inner child healed.
Mhm.
And then it came down to it. She had a tough childhood. Okay. So, okay, let's talk about that. And as we got going, it turns out she was a part of a cycle of abuse, so her parents were abusive to her. And then I just asked a simple question: how about her grandparents? Were they abusive to her parents? Yes, absolutely. And then it became clear that this was an ancestral cycle of abuse,
Right?
and this was her opportunity to stop it, to end it. So we worked on that, and basically, so this turned into an ancestral clearing instead of an inner child uh, healing. So what we basically did is a special procedure that was gifted to me, I guess you'd say, about a year and a half ago, where we build up love and forgiveness in the heart of the person who's wants the healing, and we send it through. We visualize her parents and then their parents, and then a line of
Hmm.
ancestors behind her, and we radiate love and forgiveness out and send it through the entire family lineage, the DNA lineage. It's not necessarily past lives. This is a genetic clearing. So it's
Right.
it's it's a different thing. Past lives may be involved, actually. Probably there's some past lives involved in these ancestors, but it goes through, until we don't see anymore. And then we actually sever a cord from the entire family lineage, and it's it's amazing. So uh, her results were, feeling of relief energetically. She had some intestinal issues as a result. And just there was another kind of gift given to her from the guys. It was her role to heal the family line and to break the cycle of abuse forever. So that's a monumental role
That's
that she
huge,
fulfilled. It literally, it's probably one of those life goals that, before she
right?
came in.
That's a really big deal. Did she have children, Greg?
Yes,
And how had that gone?
fine, but she was noticing she was being like, she complained. She said, I don't know why I'm yelling at my kids so hard, like really being hard on them. So, she was inching towards, you know,
Okay.
potentially abuse. But she didn't say that. She just said, I'm yelling at them a lot. So verbal abuse is also a form of abuse, of course, emotional abuse. So it was getting to be a little bit like that. So, um, yeah, so caught in time. I mean, so now it's all healed. It's funny because that was a healing session for that person, but it healed an entire family line. So,
Right.
so very
How
cool.
beautiful and powerful, just the ripple effect of that. And I really feel that's true. It's not always this direct and this specific, but I really feel that's true. When we heal and let go of things, it radiates out to those around us.
Yes,
And
yes,
others, because we really are all one, and it just lifts all boats rise with the tide.
absolutely. So let's talk about your radical financial
Fantastic.
improvement.
This one was very, very interesting because really the more I work with people, the more I see that health is wealth. If you are not feeling well, if you have health challenges, it's absolutely going to impact both your finances as well as your relationships. So Lori came to me because she'd been struggling with both her health and her finances for decades. She was really depressed. She was just chronically exhausted. She had four children, and she had to use a wheelchair at times because she had such significant knee pain, and she just didn't feel like she could move forward. So yeah, it kind of makes sense. It's very symbolic to have that level of knee pain. So as we did her past life regression, as we did her healing, we went immediately to a lifetime as an Irish village wise woman. And because she lived in a time where people, in general, in that village had very little money or affluence, it was very, very hand to mouth. So when someone would go to pay her or to barter, to give her a half a dozen eggs or a loaf of bread or whatever it might be, for the healing, the beautiful work that she had done and spent her time and talent and energy on, she said, in that past life, she's like, oh, it just makes me sick. Money and any sort of payment makes me sick because I literally feel like um, I'm taking money from the mouths of starving babes. I feel like by their paying me, that family may not make it through the end of the month or the end
Right.
of the year or whatever. So she literally was at that point where she believed that money made her sick.
Wow.
So you can't live like that, not in a system with capitalism. So we decoupled that unhealthy link between her health and her wealth, and we just thanked her and praised her for the beautiful service that she'd given in that lifetime. We revisioned some happier outcomes, where what people gave her was from their abundance. And maybe they had just the corn had grown like crazy, that summer, and they were able to give her a dozen ears of corn easily, so we did some revisioning of it, or they helped her with a service that she needed, like, to get new shingles put on her roof, type of thing that she couldn't get up there and physically do herself. But that wasn't stopping someone's baby or child from being fed.
Right.
So we did some different things there. She no longer uses a wheelchair. I'm happy and delighted and amazed to say. And also, all this had led to, even though she is very, very gifted spiritually, energetically, psychically, she in this lifetime was not willing to work with her guides. She's like, I've just washed my hands of them because of the misery
Mm.
of this lifetime, and now I'm realizing, it's coming from this previous lifetime as the wise woman. So we had some work to do there. and she did agree to, because again, that's her choice. It's a free will choice. And I certainly didn't strong arm her in any way. But what I asked her was, okay, now that you're getting a fresh start here, we're like restarting your life in beautiful ways. I think she was maybe in her 50s at the time, um, uh, perhaps a little bit older. I said, what if we were to call in new guides for you? Because we can absolutely do that. And guides just came like rushing in. It's like, let's get this woman supported. So she did agree to do that. And very quickly, and she hadn't been able to find a job that suited her. And she'd actually been laid off during the process where we're having these sessions, which was perfect timing. So she got a new day job finally, that was a great fit for the family. So that was terrific. I was thrilled to hear that because I had been a big issue for years. So she contacted me to let me know that. And then very quickly, icing on the cake, she got an unexpected windfall. It was a small inheritance from a great aunt or something like that, and she had not expected this inheritance, and it was just enough money that she was able to move forward with this really cool idea, that she had to start her own small company that was going to be offering a healing product to other people. So she was able to do that, and she was able to work from home. And this had all been her dream.
Wow.
So it just was like boom, boom, boom. Once we went through that lifetime of origin, and she said to me as that village wise woman, money makes me sick. Like, there we go.
Right.
We've got it now. There we go. There we go.
Wow.
So, because, and again, she had overgeneralized from money to like accepting help, services, just uplift and support. So she then broadened that to, nope, I don't deserve help from any guide. I don't like them. They can't help me. Well, you're right. They can't help you if you don't want to work with them. It's a free will choice. If we're like, go away, and I say that with the greatest of compassion because I've had to do some healing of my own, regarding the divine. And a shaman said to me, my nickname had become Dr. No, because I was just turning away. I was turning away help because I just didn't trust it.
Right.
So, all right, what's next, Gregg?
Ancestral curse removal. So this is not as dire as it sounds, but it's fascinating how so the patient came to me uh, starting with health related issues, some abdominal issues, some organ issues. We weren't looking for this. This was just a regular clearing that was going to happen. And one of the first things I saw was I started seeing Native American settlements in North America. Um, and I didn't know why. I started seeing this woman's body, and then all of a sudden, I'm seeing Native American settlements, and then I'm getting the information, coming in as I just was patient that I asked where this person lived at one point, and where the person lived, it confirmed what I was seeing. So the person lived in this area that I was seeing. Um, so in a past life, her entire family had been settlers, and they had negatively impacted the Native Americans.
Mm,
The Native Americans put a curse on them,
mhm,
on their family line.
mhm,
So they're still in the area. They're the ancestors still living in the area,
mhm.
and so that was causing all kinds of family issues as well amongst the family. So that was something I'd never seen before. I off my radar completely.
This
So
is something shaman work with very typically.
yeah, yeah. So we removed the curse. We asked for forgiveness, of the Native Americans, and then we, forgave them for the curse. Um, and um, as we continued working, we needed to also do that same ancestral thing that I talked about before, where we envision the mother and the father, and then all the relatives behind them, because there was internal strife in the family as well that was caused by the curse. Um, so we did the same thing of forgiveness and healing, and that has played out in amazing ways. So, the result was it's so funny because this person came to me for physical pain, and it went away, but not in the way that, in this completely roundabout, ancestral curse removal and family clearing. It's given her a better understanding of the family dynamics, and again, this the same thing came through there, where the guides said, your role here is to break the cycles of abuse in your own family, and to become, and you're an ancestral healer. Basically the guides again confirmed this was your role, to heal this. This is a big deal in healing the entire ancestral line throughout all lifetimes, including some lifetimes that you'd lived. So amazing. And this one happened, relatively recently, and it's I don't want to go into a lot of personal details, but it's been really big. The word monumental came up. It's
Beautiful.
monumental, so very cool. And again, it's like one of those things with these sessions. I'm sure this happens to you too, Wendy, where somebody comes in for some sort of healing, and then the healing becomes something, you know, uh, it veers off into where it needs to go,
Exactly.
and it's usually afterwards I think, wow, the smallest thing brought that person in.
The free flowing energy, that the healing energy.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing brought the person in, and then something so much, it's like our thoughts and wishes are always much lower than the what comes in afterwards. Our
Right. So
expectations
much
are this,
smaller.
right? Exactly. So very, very, very cool. Anyway, Wendy.
Wonderful. So back to Regression Healing 1, the Huntsman, the Lord Hymere, and the World War II soldier. So here's a beautiful, straight to the point testimonial from that client, just remarking that my past life regression was wonderful. My neck and back feel remarkably better. Bless you, Wendy. And I included the link for that, how to purchase the copy, and it's available not just in paperback and Kindle, but it's also available as an audiobook. So if you like to listen to your books, and here's one of the Amazon reviews, that Regression Healing 1 is a really good delve into how your past affects your life in some ways you consciously are unaware of, and how someone can help you unearth what's holding you back and help you start to heal. So I think that's just a great summary.
Very cool. Well, I'm finally talking about my book. That, yeah, I'm hoping to have a sequel soon, um, sometime next year, hopefully. But yes, so The Gratitude Curve, the book I wrote, published in 2017. 2017. This is not a story of one patient. This is not a story of how one patient conquered chronic illness. It's a story of how that patient listened to what the illness had to teach him, which is ultimately what I learned. Wendy and I've talked about it many times here, but I didn't learn this idea that life is happening for you. It's not happening to you. And I was in the mode of like, I'm a victim, like bad things are happening to me. What am I going to do? And I had to be pushed all the way to my margins,
Mhm.
almost out of my life, actually, until I realized, oh, wait a minute, something life changing is happening right now, and I'm learning so much. And a quick review. By the way, you can purchase it on Amazon.com, also on my website, gregkirk.com/book. And yeah, the review is, I began your book today. Thank you for putting so much of my personal experience into words. I spent the day reading it and crying. Time to let it go. Many blessings and my deepest heartfelt gratitude. So Very wonderful. A lot of, I talk a lot about my Lyme disease healing, and there's a lot of Lyme patients who have are still going through or have gone through very similar things. So let's talk about next month, Wendy.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. And please join us November 11th, Monday, 11/11, for the next Waking Up Spiritually podcast. And we're going to have a special guest. We're going to have a wonderful friend of mine who's a really talented animal healer. His name is Nels Rasmussen, and he will be joining us. Please join us in our Facebook group, which is Waking Up Spiritually. You can just search for that. We'd love to have you join us there. Our website, as I mentioned, for the podcast, because these are visual podcasts. So if you're just listening to it, that's great. But if you'd like to see the PowerPoint, you'll be able to do so by calling up wakingupspiritually.com, as well as by searching by topic. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We so appreciate that. And then you'll just know when the latest episodes come up, and that helps other people find it too. Rate and review us on Apple iTunes. Again, that just helps people find us, because we just want to be able to be in service and help lift up others with their spiritual awakening, because it can be isolating, it can be confusing, it can be vexing, it can be it can be exhilarating, it can be fantastic, but it can be all over, all over the map. And visit Gregg at his website, which is Gregg, Gregg, Kirk.com. And you'll get to check out the wonderful things that he offers. Visit me at my website, which is wendyrosewilliams.com. And big announcement all the way here at the end. I am now offering some 1 hour energy healing sessions, which I have not offered for many years. So those are now available. You'll find them on my website, as well as weekend hours and availability for a limited time. So if you want to, dip your toe in the water and aren't quite ready to do that big 3 session package with me, you're able to do the single session, and you can do it on a weekend if you need the weekend hours. So thank you so much for being here. We truly, truly appreciate you. Bye for now.
Bye bye.